Reunited, and it feels so good, and yet horrifying. Everything we wanted to see on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Plus, we all know Jessica and Patsy are a great team. We're going to give you our favorite teams / pairs, and we'll get you ready for Legion Season 3 premiering tomorrow night on FX. Marvel TV Weekly starts now.
You're tuned in to AfterBuzz TV, the ESPN of TV talk. Now, let the buzz begin.
Yes, welcome to Marvel TV Weekly. I am Christian Bladt, sitting in again this week, the one, the only, that Zach Wilson.
Yes, that one, not the other one.
No, not the other one. The one that's at that Zach Wilson.
I'm just dancing here, it's fine.
Because we have an amazing episode of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. to talk about, of course it is very fortuitous that Zach is here. Ooh. But I also have Rachel Goodman on the couch, my friend from the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. after show, which I sat in on just moments before we started here. So, Rachel, I was like, we can't stop talking about Fitz and Simmons. We have to talk about them all over again / more.
I feel like I haven't seen you in a long time.
I know, it's been a very long time. Yes, I missed you, and I was like, we just got to do it again.
We needed an encore.
But because you have yet to watch Jessica Jones or Legion, I don't want to ruin either of those shows for you. So we'll just have you there on the couch for the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
I definitely am shocked at that information and did not have it before the show.
By the way, no seasons of Jessica Jones. It's not that she just hasn't seen season 3, and so I've urged her strongly to check that one out.
Well, now you've got a lot of binging to do.
Which of the Netflix shows
binging
have you seen?
I watched one episode of Punisher.
Well, that was a weird one to start with.
Yeah.
That is super weird.
I don't know you that well, but I'm like, I don't think that's to me, that's not the one for you.
No.
At least Daredevil. You know?
I have not seen Daredevil yet. I have not seen Jessica Jones.
This is great. I wish I still had all these shows to discover.
Knowing you, start with Jessica season 1.
Okay, all right.
That's going to be your best point of entry. It doesn't really step on any of the other shows, even though it came after. You can go back to Daredevil season 1. Don't watch Defenders without having seen Daredevil and all that stuff.
Okay.
But
got it.
Start with Jessica season 1.
Okay.
Anyone who is in the chat live, let us know what season you think Rachel should start with.
What season?
Yeah, what season?
Well, which show, what season?
Which show, what season? Yeah, that's exactly what I meant. Of all the seasons out there. And people in the chat are excited to see Zach. They're excited to see Rachel. Zia is a little bit of a punk, and she didn't want to be here. No, she's actually sick tonight.
How dare you be sick, Zia?
Yeah.
I know you're listening right now, and I'm mad at you.
I thought she was stronger than this, but you know what? I guess I was wrong. So she's got a weak immune system, and she's a weak person. So you can all let her know that I said that.
I'm giving Zia evil eye right now through the camera. I don't even know if the camera's on me, but I'm giving you the evil eye, Zia. Anyway.
And Rachel, hubby Joe's your husband, right?
Yes.
He says that you're actually going to start binging tonight, apparently, Jessica Jones.
Oh.
So now you know.
You can tell hubby Joe that I say, no, sleep is more important.
Wrong.
I think Zach and I disagree. When season 1 of Jessica Jones first premiered that day, I watched 10 episodes that day.
Okay.
It's the only time I've done anything like that. But I was just like, I can't stop. Also, I had a very small child, so I wasn't going anywhere. I had to stick around the house, and I think he's turned out all right, despite the influence of of the villain from that series. I'll just leave it at that.
I can tell you what, though, watching one episode of Punisher and having not seen any of the other shows, I was very disoriented, but I enjoyed the first episode.
I mean, you don't need to see any of the Punisher really operates on his own level. Yes, he was introduced in Daredevil season 2, but you can definitely watch the Punisher without ever. You could hate superhero shows and watch both seasons.
Especially season 1 is lives on its own in a big way.
Yeah. Anyway, what we're going to talk about, though, is an amazing episode of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., season 6, episode 6, and I feel like I should be chivalrous, and Rachel, please, just overall, why is this possibly the greatest episode in the run of the season?
Whoa,
the series.
Loud statement.
One word. Fitzsimmons. That is it.
That's all you need.
But no, seriously though, this episode, so As you guys both know, I am obsessed with season 4 with the framework, and Fitzsimmons is also my one true pairing. So they are like just that alone. The fact that we got Fitzsimmons together, we had them inside each other's mind. There was a psychological aspect to this where it wasn't even like they were facing each other's demons. We learned that Jemma had a demon that we did not know about, but I'm not even calling it demon Jemma. I'm calling it fearful Jemma because that's really what this was. It was so much fear compiled into this one being.
And that's what I liked when we talked about it in the after shows. You love Jemma so much, you would not call that thing Demon Jemma. Yet everyone in the chat was like Demon Jemma, Demon Jemma. And I'm terrified of Demon Jemma. But you want to like try to help her become a better person.
Exactly. And like just I feel like too demon isn't quite the right word considering all demon I'm not even going to say demon. There we go. All fearful Jemma wanted was to hurt the person who had deeply hurt her. And that was the thing that even Jemma herself said was that Fitz had caused her pain and that she had been through so much because of him. Not that that's fair. But.
Zach, overall thoughts on this episode, which was, pure Fitzsimmons for 42 minutes, whatever the running time is.
I love Fitzsimmons. I do. I don't know if this episode landed the way it was supposed to land for me. I felt like it needed to dial either up the weird by 20% or down the weird by 20%. One of the two.
So could you have used more of Leopold and Demon Jemma really going to town on each other? Like, would that have been more weirdness for you?
Like, that's the kind of thing like that should have been throughout the whole episode, if you ask me. I mean, because that's like I loved the stuff that the little reveals that we got of like the past versions, like Fitz and Simmons like first meeting with Coulson was really cool.
Yeah,
I like traveling through memories, and maybe it's just because I recently binged Legion, so all of this like going into your mind for like memory stuff I've been living with for a while, and like that's the thing, because there's another Marvel show doing that. I think you had to go either next level or just do something a little more down to earth with it. But it was still really cool to see that like if you're gonna have somebody fight with their demons, way more fun to have them do it on screen. And we closed the loop on Leopold.
Yeah. Well, I think that's really what I loved about it, especially the fact that they now going forward, Jemma has been inside his mind and he's been inside her mind in a sense, so they can understand each other and empathize a lot more than they could before. What I expected was the way they advertised it, over a week ago now, was they said framework. So I was expecting that this wasn't going to be the cerebral fusion machine, but that they literally were going to be in a framework where they were going to take what they thought they knew. And I mean, I guess they did in a sense, but like they were actually going to put them into this virtual, it's not like in a different reality than where they were actually. And I guess arguably they were in a different reality of their mind, but I thought it was going to be more like along the lines of the framework itself.
I guess it is. It's the Chromicon version of a framework, but the difference is they let you know that you're in the framework.
Yeah.
Because it effectively works the same way. It's just that you can control it while you're inside, as opposed to an outside force controlling it for you.
Yeah, it's not a program that you're existing inside. They're definitely able to go from memory to memory, from setting to setting, and I thought, but that is a good way to describe it. It is really like a Chromicon framework, and we do get to see so many things in this episode. For me, as I talked about on the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. after show, loved seeing real Coulson. Because, who knew if we were going to get real Coulson ever again. Sarge, you're whatever, you're fine. But I was so glad to get real Coulson. But
I love how the hair was like, they did the wig to the hair he had in Iron Man and Thor.
I know, I thought that was a nice touch.
Yeah.
But let's talk a little bit about Little Jemma. What are your thoughts on Little Jemma, Zach? Was that the weirdness that you were looking for?
That was like the start of it. It was like, I like that, like that idea of we're bending into reality, and Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is always on a much more limited budget, so that's why you have like the White Room, and their dream state is just basically going through every set that they have pre-built.
Right.
But it was cool to see like them start to mess with themselves I guess the thing that I'm like, it was fearful Jemma. That was like that needed to be either dialed up or dialed down because they hadn't pre-established her in a different episode. It was just being introduced here in order for her to have a demon. It felt like a little bit shoehorned in. That was the only thing that I think really set me off, is that Fitz's demon we knew about, and I think that's sort of where the strength of this show was that, or this episode is that you got you cleared up Leopold, so you don't have this internal dark Fitz that we have to worry about, since we established that exists within him last season. And I think we killed time travel.
Yeah.
Sorry, this is not answering your question at all.
No. But and we talked a little bit ago on the after show that throughout the episode, I thought, they teased it a couple times. I thought that Fitz and Simmons were actually going to help, and that was going to be the explanation for how they have the machine in the future, which is last season. So our past, their future, whatever. Not Gemma's future. I don't know. That's the problem with time travel. So the fact that they weren't going to do it, I thought was interesting, and wasn't quite sure where that was going to go. But what I wanted to get back to is there's two things that happen, Rachel, that we talked about. One, Fitz doesn't want to accept at first that there's something really bad that Jemma isn't telling him, and then he sees his own dead body. But you thought the interesting thing was finding out something else actually made him more upset, right?
Yeah, so I think that really what it did was obviously triggered all of these emotions in him, triggered Fritz. What I found the most interesting about the episode in general, though, was how both characters, we didn't know this as much about Jemma as we knew it about Fitz, but both of them were kind of in this thing where they were concealing their inner selves and concealing how they were feeling. And especially with Jemma, we always get a very even keel version of her character. But with this, each character was triggered and pushed, and their demons were pulled out of them to the point where they had to face this head on, and there was no way around it.
Yeah, and Zach, I mentioned this in the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. after show. And I know he said it twice, but the fact that Fitz points out that taking all of your emotions and stuffing them into a box, literally stuffing them into boxes, you're so British. And then somebody in the chat on the other show pointed out that she then yelled at him that he's so Scottish. So I thought that this was all very funny.
Did she?
Yeah, this was somebody said in the chat, which I didn't hear, but somebody in the chat seems to find
repressed father issues that he has to take out via occasional violence. Yeah, that's pretty Scottish. Sorry, Scottish people.
Look, we love the Scots.
But it's true.
I've been binging Outlander.
Oh, there you go. So one other thing, Rachel. So talk about, for Fitz, dealing with the fact that he is going to die / has died for Jemma. The realization that Coulson was sick and died, just the fact that seems to have upset him more than even his own mortality.
Yeah, and that's something that we really stressed in the show, was that it's not so much that he missed out on his wedding, and it's not so much that he himself has died, even though that obviously bothered him on a level that he's never going to be able to be unbothered by.
They've done way weirder stuff.
Yeah, but then he watches Coulson come out and realizes, I will never get to say goodbye to this person. They have already died. And I think that's really what messed with him the most.
So you want to talk about somebody who's not going to be ready to meet Sarge, by the way, is Fitz, who didn't get to say goodbye.
I mean, that's the thing that is really hard. All of these people lost essentially a father.
Yeah.
Fitz, who who didn't have a good father, got one in Coulson. Jemma had a good relationship with her parents, so less so her, but everyone from Daisy, May lost essentially a husband. Everyone lost. The dad of the family is gone. And now Uncle Mac is in charge.
It's don't worry, Uncle Mac's gonna watch after you.
But now long lost dad's twin just showed up and is wrecking up the place.
Yeah. Right, exactly.
With the same DNA.
Yeah, so that's
in the
that's
teaser.
something that we'll see next week. So yeah, in general, it seems like people in the chat like this episode, and I think it's just, even if maybe it wasn't 100% for you, just getting to see Fitz and Simmons actually together again, and I think Enoch is getting a little bit closer to regaining his BFF status. He's not there yet, but he's at least really, he's going to get a whole collection of BFF merit badges, and he's going to get them sewn on, and then he's going to be so close. And I hope that before the end of the season, he is Fitz's best friend again.
I mean, look, everybody can relate to what Enoch did in that moment when you really get down to it. His family showed up. He had a new friend. He was off on adventure with his new friend. His family showed up and was like, hey, you got to help us. The only way to help us is to screw over your new friend. He's reasonably torn on how to handle that. Anyone would be confused about what to do in that circumstance.
I mean, obviously, he shared his data with Hatara, so...
Yeah, right, that was very funny, the data port and all that. To kind of close the book on this, Jenna James points out in the chat, definitely one of the best episodes of the series. Fitzsimmons' love is so haunting, challenging, tragic, devastatingly painful, and yet so bittersweet, odds-defying, courageous, powerful, perfect.
I hope we can give them a rest for a little while. Like, do we need to keep putting them through the worst abuse ever?
I think something terrible is going to happen at the end of the season.
Yeah, because, we have been through...
Yeah.
Yeah, I would like it if it was more like just a very calm... I mean, it's not going to be, but...
No, Simmons is going to die this time. I don't want to see it. But that's sort of all. That's like the one card left. But in general, I'm enjoying the season. And Zach, I know that you're more interested in the Earthbound stuff. And it seems like we're getting... at the last scene of the episode, we're getting to the point where the two stories are about to converge.
Yeah,
and we're gonna get everybody back
coming
together.
back.
Yeah, I want to see everybody, including Deke. I want everybody back together.
Well, that was one of my favorite parts of the episode.
yeah.
Is like right at the end, like, oh, by the way, you're a grandfather.
Yeah.
What?
But before we move on to Jessica Jones, while we still have Rachel here, we want to do our top 3. Yes, it is indeed time for our special segment.
That's beautiful.
I love that.
Get out of here, fairy! Stop sprinkling that stuff.
Yeah, come on. Just
Gross.
because Disney owns everything doesn't mean Tinkerbell has to be on our show. So we wanted to talk about 3 great pairs. Now, this doesn't have to be a romantic pair. It could be a team. Mine is not a romantic pair, but perhaps something for the future of maybe a shipping podcast will be mine. But I wanted to give Rachel the opportunity you have an honorable mention.
Yes.
And then your favorite pair. So who's your honorable mention?
Definitely Captain and Peggy Carter.
Absolutely. It's hard to fault that at all. I mean, really, everybody else could be second.
Yes.
I like how you introduce them. Like, it's like, and now presenting Captain and Mrs. Peggy Carter.
That's right. Yeah. And now hitting the floor for their first dance in secret back in 1944. It is indeed the Captain and Mrs. Peggy Rogers. I don't know.
She could be.
I do have a question. Are we talking just MCU?
I would say no. I mean, I'd like to because mine is actually not really.
Okay, fair.
Because
Okay.
mine's from the comics. So yeah.
Yeah.
But so and your actual one ties into exactly what we were talking about.
Fitzsimmons, of course. They ever since the beginning, they have been my OTP.
Yeah, I've been upfront that for me, there's been a little bit of some ups and downs on the show, but the thing that I always liked from the pilot is Fitz and Simmons.
Yeah.
And whenever I'm like, oh, I've got 8 of those to watch, which did happen, I'm like, I kind of want to know what Fitz and Simmons are up to. I've always liked them, and I'm glad that there's been so much in the show to stick with and really see the ebb and flow of the relationship. Zach, your ultimate pair / team up.
Okay. I'm going to clarify that this is specifically the MCU version.
Okay.
Even though there's a lot of great stuff from the comics as well.
Yes.
But Ant-Man and the Wasp.
Okay, so...
I'm clarifying for obvious reasons that we don't need to get into right now.
So
but if you know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about.
So Scott Lang and Hope, as in from the movie.
But the it's a 2-part thing because especially in the movies you have 2 Ant-Men, 2 Ant-Men and the Wasps. You have Hank and Janet from the original pairing, and you have Scott and Hope.
Right.
And for me, there's nothing better than 2 watching two superheroes that are also a couple work together, it's just fun. It's fun. There's the moments in like Endgame where they're cracking wise at each other, where she straight up makes fun of him in the moment.
Yeah, I mean, that's always kind of one of the great dynamics about the Fantastic Four, because you have that and also Sue Storm's little brother. You know? So you have like that dynamic, and just
and their best friend,
and their buddy from college. Yeah, well, actually, I think in the original they were World War II buddies, but whatever. Anyway, that's not the point. So mine is Power Man and Iron Fist, because they're both good on their own, but they're so great together. And I always, we got a little hint of it in The Defenders. I liked watching them interact. Yeah. And the best episode in season 2 of Luke Cage for me was the one with Danny, because I guess this is all I want. I just want them together. And the fact that I'll never get my Power Man and Iron Fist TV show has me very upset. But I don't know. I think that the fact that the sum is so much better than the parts is why I think they work so well together. And they're so different. Yeah. They shouldn't work well together. And I think that's why I like them so much. Yeah. So you can let us know your favorite pairs in the chat. But I will say, just while we're on, before we leave this topic entirely, as far as like couples go, Cap and Peggy are my OTP. Yeah.
Oh, Endgame.
It's tough to beat, Yeah. All right. So Rachel, thank you so much for sitting in and talking Shield and pairs with us. But people can find you next Sunday at 8:00 Pacific on the Agents of Shield after show. And where else can they find you?
So I also do the Young and the Restless soap after show, so they can find me on Sundays.
Probably a lot of great pairs that you like from the years of that show. There you go.
Absolutely. And then I actually just finished The Spanish Princess. I'll be back in a year doing that.
Okay.
But then just to kind of mention, since Outlander season is coming back soon, I will be on Outlander, the after show, probably whenever it returns in the fall.
Great. So and where can they find you on social media?
Oh, yeah. Good one. It's a good one to point out. On Twitter, I'm at Rachel Goodman.
Just at Rachel Goodman. All right, thank you. All right, well, thank you so much, Rachel. We always appreciate having you on here, and we'll have you back soon. We're now right past the midway point of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., so there'll be plenty more S.H.I.E.L.D. to talk in the near future. So thank you to Rachel. Now, Zach, you and I have spoken about Jessica Jones season 3. I think we got through episode 6 on Marvel Movie News, which is Thursdays at 1 Pacific on the Popcorn Talk Network. So I've only seen 2 more beyond that, and I know you've seen more than that. So just tell me what number you're up to.
I believe I'm up to episode 10 now.
That's exactly where I want to be.
Stop. No, I'm sorry.
I also do the Jessica Jones after show, and because we were covering up until 8, and the way that 8 ends, I'm like, I can't watch more. I don't feel like I'm going to be able to talk about it if I've seen more. But I'm gonna ask you to try to do what I couldn't do.
No, I wrote down my thoughts right after 8 so that I know what I'm saying.
Sort of big picture, I think that this is a great season. I really like watching Jessica and Patsy work together. They've done such a great job with Salinger / Fool Killer, and really just having him as an adversary. And in so many ways, he should be so much more inferior. She'd be like a speck to Jessica, but she's really met her match in this guy who has no powers. In fact, he hates everybody who's cheating and does have powers. So I think she's a great foil. He's a great foil for her, because I think the problem with Kilgrave was that he was just, way too powerful. And this is a guy who's just smart the old-fashioned way.
This is the interesting shift in the dynamic from season 1, is that in season 1 you had Jessica going up against a guy who had powers of a level that were almost unconceivable.
Yeah.
And she had to use her own powers and just her intelligence to beat him. But now she's in a place where she's not willing to use her powers to defeat this guy. She needs to defeat him legitimately. Yeah. And the only way to do that is with the police, to do it by the books. But she's met her intellectual match, and she can't use her powers. So she's in a reversal of the dynamic where, yes, she's the stronger one in certain ways, but he's got the upper hand on her anyway.
Yeah, and I thought the a great scene was when they have the little wrestling demonstration. I think that was episode 7. And, I think we talked about this on Marvel Movie News, like how he doesn't have a restraining order against her. The fact that they're so willing to be like, yeah, come on in, let's wrestle. I think that it's like when she flicked Patsy aside. She's not trying. And she's just so much stronger than him.
Yeah.
And Patsy chastised her for not training more. And she's just faster and more agile. In every way, she's better than him, except that he's, just like genius or whatever. So from just a standpoint of watching the scene, watching the two of them actually, fight and the kids cheering her on, I thought it was great. But also just sort of the representation of like, yeah, this is really the dynamic. I thought it was a great sequence that they had.
I mean, Salinger's whole perspective is really interesting. Like, I can understand I've worked hard and I can't get anywhere near you. That's cheating. That's not fair. It's that like incel-y thing of like, well, why didn't I get that? I tried hard. It's like, well, that's not, sometimes you try and like, it doesn't always come together. You just everybody is going at their own pace. Everybody has their own thing. It's not about you. It's about them too. And I'm surprised that the one thing I'll say is nobody's brought up the fact that Jess didn't ask for this. It was imposed upon her.
Yeah, I mean, Trish literally asked and begged for this and wanted it more than anything. But Jessica was in no way looking for this.
Trish fits his bill of a cheater more than anything else because she wanted the shortcut. She did take the shortcut. Jess just rolls with what happens to her and makes the best of whatever situation she's put into.
Yeah, I know. When you think about all of the Marvel Netflix characters, it's really like Trish is the one who's like, I need to have these powers. Like, Luke Cage didn't ask for it. Danny, I guess, earned the Iron Fist. But really, it's really just Trish. It's like really, Salinger should just be focused on Trish. But let's talk about the turn that episode 8 takes. And for me, watching it, I thought they were setting up so here's the notion that I had as I'm watching it. He doesn't know that Trish is Hellcat. He knows that Trish is essentially her sister. Okay, he's going to show up at Trish's house and not realize that she's going to be able to kick his ass. So I was actually legitimately surprised not when we see her in the chair, but where it was going. I'm like, oh no, that's not what they're doing. How did that play out for you watching sort of who Salinger was focused on?
Meaning,
which we can say. I mean, we're assuming everybody.
You're talking about Dorothy.
We're talking about Dorothy.
Yeah. We're talking. Yeah. So that was intense. I mean, it was a slow. I thought they built the reveal of it very well. Yeah. Where it's like family. Who do they mean? Mom's dead. We're not going to bring the brother back. Is he going to like rip open their bodies? Oh, he means. Oh no. Oh, what? And then it's like very clear that it's going to be just done by the time you get there, and it sucked to watch that scene, to watch Trish have to go through that. She's ripping off the duct tape and realizing there's nothing.
There's literally nothing she can do.
I was because she's cut up real bad. In the moment, I thought it might have been like death by 1,000 cuts. I don't know that it was still like violent. I don't know that it was that, but that would have been an interesting parallel.
Yeah, and obviously, the Dorothy Walker is a complicated character, but she certainly shown her value to both Trish and Jessica, beyond the fact of, just being a person and, we should be able to live out her life naturally. So I think they did a good job of making us care for essentially an unlikable character. I think I cared for her a little bit more this season than I did in the past. Also, I thought she was great on the Home Shopping Network, So I was just like, I was excited for Dorothy to have that career. So
she's done a good job to turn herself around. She was on a redemption arc, and that got cut short.
Yeah, and I think that was great. So Trish responding in the only way that makes any sense to her to basically go and kill Salinger, and the way the episode ends, I still haven't seen the next episode because I knew I was going to talk up to that point here.
How did you survive?
I was in Vegas all weekend, and I made the time to watch Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and I actually watched it over 2 nights. So
okay, well, this is what I wrote down.
Good. All right, yeah, I want to hear this.
I wrote down, holy, wait, how do you feel about language on this?
We were okay with it. We we don't use it a lot, but I think when it's appropriate.
Holy fuck, Trish on a rampage. Jess is gonna, and this was my prediction, Jess is gonna bust the floor open underneath them and like save them by crashing,
right.
by
remember,
breaking the floor.
Zach wrote this before he watched,
yeah.
So if he's right, he's just saying that that's what he thought was gonna happen.
And then I said Salinger is gonna walk and they'll have to get him on a new crime.
Yes, my thought was not to break the floor. That seems like a good, like, logical, practical way. I was just like, okay, she's going to stop Trish, and it'll be one of those things like that. Probably should have just let her kill him, because now you're gonna not get him. And
the last things I wrote were, was it death by 1,000 cuts? And then just can't stop.
Yeah, no, you couldn't stop. And I think if I wasn't on the after show now. The Jessica Jones after show will actually be back on Thursday, right after Marvel Movie News, which is at 1 Pacific on the Popcorn Talk Network. Back over here at AfterBuzz at 2 p.m. Pacific. You will find Jessica Jones. We will talk about 9 and 10. And we're going to finish Jessica Jones over the course of this week. We're going to do the last 3 episodes of the after show. But stay tuned for scheduling. There's a lot of moving parts when you have, important people like April Dawn and Adam Gertler on the panel. You have to work around their schedules. So we'll let you know. But we know that we're going to be back for 9 and 10 on Thursday. All right, so in our final minutes here, I want to talk about the fact that Legion is going to be back with its season 3 premiere tomorrow night on FX. And as if you aren't exhausted enough by how much you see me on this network and on Popcorn Talk, I will also be on the after show for Legion, which will be at 9 Pacific on Mondays. On AfterBuzz TV. So we will watch it on the East Coast feed, I guess, because it doesn't air till 10 o'clock. I'm confused now already. But anyway, the great thing to have, it's great to have Zach here in general, but a great thing is that you just binged. Now, did you binge all of Legion, or you had fallen behind?
I had fallen behind, but that show is such a mind F of a thing that I was like, I need to start over again. Yeah. So I don't even remember how far I'd gotten, but wherever it was, I could tell I needed to go back.
Just go back, yeah.
Because I couldn't remember all the pieces from where I was. So I started back at square one, and I watched it all in like 2 days,
which is crazy.
And my brain went into I can only describe it as my brain lost all sense of reality.
Do you think that you might, at this point, be influenced by the Shadow King? Do you think he's actually telling you what to do?
Oh, that would explain a lot. No, but I did really enjoy the show, and I'm super excited for it to come back. The trailers that they have for what's coming up, it all seems really cool. I have so many questions about how they're treating David. What is going on with this? Who's controlled by who at this point?
Right.
Because I kind of feel like a lot of people are we cool with spoilers?
Yeah,
for season 2?
I think at this point our purpose right here is to get you ready for season 3, and we're trying to remind you a little bit of the way season 2 ended, because I think it was actually more than a year ago that it ended.
Yeah. So the way that it ends with basically David, there you can debate, and we did an interview recently with Chris Claremont. Yeah. Who created the character David Haller, and when he was the idea, we were talking a little bit about what happened at the end of season 2 with David and, help me out, her
Lenny
name,
Sid
and Sid.
Yeah.
What the real context is there in terms of did he do things he shouldn't have? What was how evil was it? What was bad? What was good?
Right, and we talked about that on this show last year, and also on the Legion After show. That there are a couple ways to kind of perceive the way that things went between them, and Sid has a very strong feeling that what he did was very wrong.
And that's and the thing is, her perspective is the one that matters the most.
Right.
So either way, she is hurt by that.
Yes.
And he's gonna have to deal with that, whether he can make it up to her or not. I don't know that he can, because and again, her perspective is the one that matters, because it was her that was hurt and violated.
Yeah.
I want to see what he has to do with that, but I kind of feel like the Shadow King is now out of his prison, which you could say whatever you want about David. Why did you let that guy out?
Right, exactly.
Are you crazy? So I think most of the people in that room are under his control.
I think the Carries, I think everybody honestly is influenced. Sid, of course. I think everybody is influenced by Farouk, because this way that the season ends, you can sort of put the specifics of that aside for a moment. The fact that everyone is against David is one thing, but then you're also on the side of the Shadow King, who everyone knows who he is and what he's capable of because of what David told them. So the fact that no one trusts him, I think the fact that he runs off with Lenny at the end of season 2, who, by the way, Aubrey Plaza is great always, but she's so good as Lenny. I'm just glad that they figured out a way to keep her around, and I'm very excited for tomorrow night's season premiere. I can't imagine where the show's going to go. We do know that we're going to get Professor Xavier this season.
Yeah.
So, and I think there's only 10 episodes, so we'll see how quickly they get to him. But
so here, I'm curious your take on this, because there's basically we're coming into the final season. Like Noah Hawley said, this is it. It wasn't that FX was like, no, you're done. I'm sure Disney is kind of like trying to wash all the Fox X-Men stuff out of the way anyway. But I think he had planned on an ending this season, or at least that's what he's saying.
Right, that is what he's saying for sure.
Do you think that this is going to be a sort of Breaking Bad-esque turn where David is really the villain of the story? Even though we've been rooting for him, he is not our hero.
I think it's going to seem that way because, look, Legion/David, it's a very complex character. And a lot of times his actions seem like someone who you could characterize in the classic sense as a villain.
Yeah.
I mean, he, in the comics, this was about 20 years ago, 20 years real time, comic time, it was like 8 minutes. But he goes back in time to kill Magneto and whoops, kills his dad, and that created the Age of Apocalypse alternate timeline that then had to be undone. And he didn't mean to do that. He just thought like, well, obviously, it's like the question of like, oh, do you go back and kill baby Hitler? It's like, well, I'm going to go back and I'm going to kill Magneto because then none of these things are going to happen and then life will be better for my dad, Charles Xavier. So I think he is very damaged and he doesn't see the world the way the rest of us do. He's so powerful. I think he's been characterized as one of the most powerful characters in the Marvel universe. I'm talking about comic book wise.
Yeah.
Just because of what he's capable of, just what he can do. And I think that he is angry at the start of the season. I think by the end of the season, he'll be the David that we knew and, saw as somewhat more I would say saw as heroic in the first 2 seasons. But I think it's going to be a really dark place that he's starting from. And I think we're all going to start to think, wait, is he the bad guy? But I think by the end of the season, he won't be. That's ultimately what I think.
Interesting. Do I have time to throw out one more theory?
Yeah, I think we can squeeze an extra minute in here.
I've told you this one before, but I want to put it. I like putting these things on the record.
I love this theory too. So get that out there.
Because in the comic version of the character, the alternate personalities that are living, each one of them has a different power.
Correct.
And each one of them is a distinct person. Yeah. They're not just, oh, this is the angry David, this is the happy David, this is the villainous David, the heroic David. They all have unique names, and like one's a little girl, and one is an adult, like old elderly man, and like all this, and each one has a different power set. I think maybe all, but maybe just like a bunch of these characters that we've seen, maybe even like I would say Sid and Lenny especially seem like they could be just and Ptolemy, all these characters might just be different aspects of David's personality. They might all be different personalities living inside his
Right,
head.
and then that would explain weird things like the female robots with mustaches and just the weird visuals and crazy stuff that happens on the show. If it's all a figment of his imagination, I hope that the show doesn't end and David's just sitting in a chair back in season 1 and he imagined the whole thing. That's gonna annoy me. But
No, I think he's brought it into reality. That's the thing.
Yeah, it's a little bit more. It's a little bit like Fight Club almost, but then with the ability to actually bring it into reality. So it'll be great to see. And I mean, the show starts tomorrow, and it'll be over in about it'll be 10 episodes, I think. So by the end of the summer, we'll know. That is all the time we have for tonight, though. But as I mentioned, you can find me tomorrow night on the Legion After Show, and you can find Zach, Zia, and myself Thursdays at 1 Pacific on the Popcorn Talk Network for Marvel movie news. And this week, some or perhaps all of us will have already seen, and we will give a non-spoilery reaction to Spider-Man Far From Home.
Spider-Man, and we're going to be talking about the finale of Jessica Jones, I think. I think we're going to finally say we've watched all of it, and we'll finish talking about it.
I hope I finished by then. Yep.
Oh, boy. I'm Zach Wilson. Catch me on Marvel Movie News. Find me on the interwebs at that Zach Wilson, ThatZachWilson. And also check out my other podcast that I do on the side. It's called Ships in the Night, and it's all about cross-fandom shipping, where we take different characters and ship them together. Like last week's episode where we did Detective Pikachu and Sherlock, the Benedict Cumberbatch version, and we found love for Valkyrie for you Marvel fans.
I'm excited.
We came up with some people, and we tried to find love for Valkyrie.
We just want her to be happy. Anyway, that's all the time we have for this week, but you can find us all those respective times. Until then, Excelsior!
Our founder, Keven Undergaro, and me, Maria Menounos, would like to thank you for tuning in to AfterBuzz TV. Remember, we're not just the first, we're the biggest in the world, and we're the only destination for all your favorite TV shows. Whatever you crave, we've got it. So go to AfterBuzzTV.com and check out our lineup. Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.